Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that's motorcycle parachuting off a mountain at this very moment! Oh, it's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most Fridays, are available to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks.
Woo!
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and he's not my chauffeur. He's my co-host. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
I choose to accept it. Ahoy!
Each week, we'll chat about movies, TV, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week. He ate 3 boxes of Cracker Jacks, got a dog whistle, and a map of the original 13 colonies. He also saw a coyote get run over by a 14-wheeler that left him flat as a pancake. It's John Paula, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, hello. Glad to be back. In the Asteroid
you,
City, where the cast is big and the scripts are witty.
Very nice. Take me down to the Asteroid City.
Why was that not sampled? Come on, GNR, get together with Wes. It's a match made in some kookamami heaven.
Yes.
That's a Weird Al bit if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, right. Let's get on that.
No doubt.
Integrated, yes. Tie-in, soundtrack, Weird Al, do it.
I'm sure Asteroid City has popped through the cultural, relevance enough that Weird Al is itching to do a parody involving it. Well, it is exciting to be here to talk Asteroid City and no other movies. There's no other movie that came out this week that anybody wants to hear us talk about. Other than maybe Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, which we will discuss. We've also got a best ever Part 1s that we will get to, movies that were intentionally Part 1 of multiple movies. And then, of course, we'll do some buried treasure as well. No reason. Well, I guess there is one reason we would wait to get into it, which is anybody want to do a little catch up on the summer game with John here hanging out with us and about halfway into the summer. So
not a bad idea. I don't feel terrible about my picks, but I will be the first to admit deeply underestimated the staying power of Spider-Verse, which is the #1 movie of the summer and still climbing.
Yeah, it's going to be number 1.
I had it at number 6. Aaron, you had it 3rd, and Andrew, you had it 2nd. So,
yeah.
I had it pegged at 235 million. I think it's already up over 350.
Yep.
And again, and still doing really well. I think it's still in the top 10 weeks a week. I had Little Mermaid first. That I think is probably going to settle in 3rd or 4th. It did do well, but not as well as I think I had predicted.
Yeah.
And then the big miss I think we all shared was The Flash. Might not even finish in the top 10. That is just such a big.
It might. I mean, it really might not, guys. I mean, like,
I don't think so. I think Transformers is going to do better. I think Barbie is already tracking to open around where, I predict. I think you need to get at least 120 to break the top 10. And I think Flash is going to peter out at like 110, 115. It has like nothing left in the tank, and it's only at like 108.
I only had it at 7th. So
I had it at 8th, and Andrew, you had it at 4th. And I think all of those picks were in April respectable choices. At the time, we all thought Michael Keaton, Batman. When has Batman ever not made money at the box office?
Yeah,
it was now. This was then.
There's a couple things to watch. Number 1, Elemental looked like it wasn't going to be a player on its first weekend. People were calling it a flop, all those kind of things, and it has like really good legs. It's picking up money, so it might end up in the top 10, depending on some unknowns. Of, for instance, Dead Reckoning, Oppenheimer, Barbie. Barbie is, I mean,
I think that was another movie we all had in the lower half of our. I had it 10. Aaron, you had it 9th. Andrew, you had it 7th, and I think it'll be in there. It'll be in like the back half. You think it'll go higher?
It would not surprise me if it is broken through in a way where everybody just wants to go see this movie a couple times.
I would be so delighted to be very wrong in the other way, right? I over predicted on Flash hugely. It's going to earn like a third of what I predicted. I would be so delighted if Barbie, just outgrossed everybody's predictions, because it looks like a totally fun, unique, subversive time that we don't get good parody movies like this anymore.
They're saying it could make 100 on its opening weekend.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
to me.
that's insane.
That's more than
It's
Indiana Jones. That's more than Elemental. It's
I
been
know.
more than The Flash. It's more than I think Spider-Verse made in its opening weekend. That would be huge to put up
Yeah.
triple digits in
Yeah.
3 days.
Well, we'll see next week. So, yep. So, yeah, currently Spider-Man at 1, Guardians at 2. Those pretty much have the 1 and 2 locked down from everything that's come out so far. Again, Mission Impossible is a big wild card. Little Mermaid at number 3, performing really well, continues to perform well. Transformers at number 4. It will not stay there, I don't think.
What is that total at now? Because that I think is-
146. So there's
Yeah,
nothing
that's-
above 150 in the top 3 right now. So Mission Impossible will make 150. Barbie
Easy.
looks like it'll make 150. Like, yeah,
Yep.
it's going to be an interesting.
of the movies that have yet to release, Ninja Turtles, Blue Beetle, Haunted Mansion, Meg 2. Do you guys have any revisions on those predictions? Do you think
No.
any of those have a
None
None
chance
of those
to-
are going to do anything.
Do not forget Equalizer 3. How dare you forget?
It has
My-
48
my-
hours to sneak in. If it
My-
opens to $150 million on
Don't you
September
dare
3rd, it can get it.
my ace up the sleeve.
That's
is
right.
Equalizer
That's fair.
3.
That opens Labor Day weekend, and the cutoff is Labor Day Monday, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if Equalizer's opening weekend is just absolutely gigantic.
Yeah.
Hey,
It could
there's
happen.
a
Maybe
movie
it'll do
that-
like Jurassic World numbers. Who knows?
Yeah. I got this in the bag, even though I'm not in last place. I'm not in last place. Or should I say Chat GPT's not in last place?
Yeah,
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, that's a nice little check-in. I do believe the plan is early on in September, after it is closed, to have you and Alice back to have a look-see at how it all went down.
A post-mortem, if you will.
Yeah, a little bit of a post-mortem reveal, the winner kind of thing. All right.
I'm looking forward to that. Pencil me in for sure.
All right, we'll do. Okay, let's head into our first review. Let's talk a little bit about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Ethan Hunt and his IMF team embark on their most dangerous mission yet, to track down a terrifying new weapon that threatens all of humanity before it falls into the wrong hands. With control of the future and the fate of the world at stake, and dark forces from Ethan's past closing in, a deadly race around the globe begins. This is the 7th Mission Impossible movie. They are all beloved in their own way, he says, trying to make Mission Impossible 2 feel a little bit better about itself.
So many doves.
It has become one of those go-to franchises. I was just talking to a friend who's not necessarily like a movie freak like we are, but enjoys the occasional film. And he said Mission Impossible is his only guaranteed movie when there's one out. He's just like, if there's a Mission Impossible movie, I just trust that it's going to be amazing. And I think there is some of that in people's consciousness after 6 of these things and now 7. This is the first part of a 2-parter, which seems to be a theme for the year. What did you guys think about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1? John, did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
I am on the low side of loved it.
Low side of loved it for John. Andrew.
I am going to be that super fun person in the discussion where I am the person who likes the movie, but I'm going to come across as the person I know. Everybody's going to say that I hate this new movie, but no, I like this movie. Maybe high side, I like this movie.
High side of liked it. It's his worst movie of the year because
Yeah.
I loved it. Solid loved it. Yeah, I think I will start with the obvious, which is these movies understand action set pieces. And when I say that, what I specifically mean is they understand it's about more than just numbing the audience through big moments. It's about more than just big explosions and lots of bullets and that
It
kind of
needs
stuff.
to service a plot point and a character progression through actual physical set pieces. And,
Yes,
and I
it-
totally agree that all of the action here services the plot and the characters in a way, and it moves things forward. It isn't just glitz, glam, and bullets and explosions for the sake of glitz, glams, bullets, and explosions. And I totally 100% agree with all that. It was awesome.
And not just that, but the set pieces are also designed in a way to be kind of mini movies in and of themselves, right? So like each of the set pieces have their own stakes, their own purposes, their own goals. They have little checkpoints within them. Literally, one of them feels like a series of escape rooms. Like they have these, this idea of being able to just kind of own the audience, right? Like there's a way where you're just like, oh, now how do they solve this problem? Okay, how do they solve this problem? How's this going to happen? Oh, can you believe that just happened? And the movie just does that so well that by the time you think to take a breath, you're in the credits and you're like, how did 2.5 hours just go by? Like it feels amazing in that way. And I was locked in to this movie through those set pieces. And I'd say there's 3, maybe 4 kind of major set pieces in this. And the other interesting thing that I was talking about with the person that I went and saw this movie with is that they aren't like unique situations necessarily. They are situations we have seen in several other action movies. How many times have we seen a car chase? There's a car chase.
We've seen Tom Cruise fight on top of a train in this franchise before,
right?
And it still felt fresh and new. And the way they photographed it, it's just like we saw this just a week ago with Indiana Jones, a fight on top of a train, going in and out of tunnels, dodging objects that may or may not permanently scar the antagonist's face for 25 years, right? It was so refreshing to see that same thing done in what may very well be the best permutation ever committed to film. I think the back 30 minutes of Dead Reckoning are some of the best, certainly the best train-related action since Back to the Future 3, and certainly the best in the Mission Impossible franchise or anything else we've seen recently. It was so good for all the reasons you mentioned. And it knows how to take established tropes and conceits, but then do them in a way that feels fresh. Or if it isn't fresh, it's at least executed to its pinnacle. It's honed in on why is this good and how do we execute it in a way that hasn't been sort of refined or optimized quite like this before.
Right. Andrew, I know you hated this movie, but do you have anything good to say about this movie that you only liked?
Tom Cruise was born in 1962.
It is true. It is true.
That is wild.
You want to hear that put in perspective? When Roger Moore, and I'll take credit from Dan Murrell on YouTube for pointing this out, Roger Moore aged out of the James Bond role in A View to a Kill when he was 55. Tom filmed this when he was 58. And he looks like he could do it for another 5 movies. I kid you not. Like, this guy is as better than he's ever been, and he's older than John Voight was in the original movie in 1996.
That's what I was about to say. He's older than John Voight, yeah.
And you go back and you watch that Brian De Palma one, and like John Voight looks like, no offense, he looks kind of old and busted. Tom Cruise in this movie, older, looks like, yes, I would dependably and without question believe this man can jump a bike off a cliff and then paraglide to freedom. Like, I totally buy it. There's nothing in that whereas in Indiana Jones a week ago, it's like, I don't know, this is 80? Okay, I don't know, guys. This is a little fishy. This movie, there's none of that. There's none of that ageism even factors into Tom's performance, because it's just like, I buy it. Because he is doing it. The Mission
Impossible franchise has this very unique way of marketing their movies. Instead of with trailers, or anything like that, it's a lot of word of mouth, like, have you heard Tom Cruise is going to do this new wild stunt in the movie? That's genius marketing. You don't have to show a lot of the movie. You just get word of mouth out there. You show like the lead up to the stunt and stuff, and you talk about how dangerous it is. That's brilliant marketing right there.
They showed a bunch of, and I tried to avoid as many as I could, but a lot of the promotion for this film was behind the scenes featurettes. It was like, you're not going to believe how long it took us to build this ramp on this Norwegian cliffside during the middle of COVID. And some of those featurettes, which I've gone back and watched since the movie came out this week, are incredible. Like, it's the amount of work that went into producing some of these stunts is arguably more impressive than the finished product. When you realize how many iterations and how many computer models and how many simulated jumps they did, how many actual skydives Tom did to prepare for this. Something like he did, I think, 10,000 motorcycle jumps over 500 skydives, and they practiced the actual one on location like a dozen times with drones and helicopters and motion tracked gimbal cameras and stuff. And it all results in a moment in the movie that lasts, I think, like 8 seconds. He's actually airborne on screen for like that. That's it. It's a blink and you miss it almost kind of sequence. And I wish they could have found a way to just give us more of it from more angles, but obviously it's the actual free fall does not last that long. I think is my biggest gripe. Is as awesome as that centerpiece was, the moment with the Burj Khalifa in the fourth movie was like a 10-minute sequence where you're just white knuckle for the entire thing. This was white knuckle, but it was like, oh, okay, I guess it's over now. It was, he jumps, he falls, he opens the chute, and then you're kind of done with it. And yeah, in a 3-hour movie, the best part was like, just this little, I wanted so much more of that big stunt. And it's not the movie's fault or the stunt's fault, but that's just me being selfish. I just want so much more of Tom being Tom.
and I feel like if they go too far that direction, then you detract from the movie, right? Because then you're then you're living in something that makes the movie feel distracting because it's aware of what it's doing. There becomes almost a fourth wall break there.
You get the situation with like Fast and Furious 6 where that endless runway. It's like, how long is this plane going to not take off? Like there's a middle ground where you have to not suspend disbelief, but also maybe give the stunt a little bit more legs. I don't know how to even describe what I'm describing, if it's even a complaint, but just I loved so much of that, and it was just so brief, and it was like, ooh.
You get that thing where they show the exact same explosion 5 different times from five angles, and it's like, okay, I get what you're doing here, but you just completely took me out of the reality of the movie. That is the opposite of what a one take does, right? This is the opposite of the beauty of what a oneer can do, is immerse you. It is like anti-immersion when you do stuff like that.
There's a sequence at the end of Mission Impossible 2 where Tom flies off his motorcycle and he pops a reverse wheelie, right, where he's on the front wheel and he spins around in slow motion and he pulls the gun sort of opposite to the way his bike is spinning. And in John Woo fashion, Tom's spinning clockwise, the camera spinning around him counterclockwise, and then John Woo edits that same move from 3 different camera angles 3 times in succession. And it's kind of like, wait, did he do it 3 times, or are they just showing different angles like a Mythbusters experiment? They're just here's it again, instant replay. And it's a very like John Woo-esque moment that like in the mid 2000s was like, yeah, that's cool. Today, that's like, whoa, okay, that was a little weird.
I'm not taking away from the artistry of doing things like that.
Right.
Like, I think you can use those kind of things intentionally to create an emotion, create an experience, whatever the case may be. I just think you have to balance that with the fact that at the end of the day, you're telling a story. And one thing that this movie never forgets is that it's telling a story. It continues that propulsion forward. And so the reason we don't get 10 minutes of him falling is because that's not what that was about. It was about the moment leading up to that, and it's about the moment where it ends, which I thought was really hilarious as well. So like there's a real understanding, I think, that this movie has of propulsion and the idea of keeping the audience in the moment and headed forward, rather than living too much in the moment. So yeah,
totally agree.
Yeah.
I also wanted to talk a little bit about my other favorite part about this movie, which is I think every other film that simultaneously, I felt this way about Way of Water too, that simultaneously shoots a couple movies together because they want to, do a 2-parter, should pay attention to how this movie handles being part 1 of a 2-parter. Because this movie does the magic trick perfectly. Yes. Of feeling like you have things set up that have not been paid off, that will be paid off in another movie, but those aren't the things the movie is investing you in this movie. It's investing you in specific other things in this movie that have resolutions in this movie. It sets up the mission, because that's one of the beautiful things about this series is it revolves around, imagine this, a mission. But it sets up the mission of this movie as the thing that is being resolved. And so, I felt like when I got to the end that I had seen a complete, full movie and yet had some curiosity and interest in what comes next. But I felt satisfied that I that I understood the story I was being told, and I understood what it meant to the characters and what it meant to me. And that's not always done well,
No,
even
that
this
is
year.
I agree with you often on this show, Aaron. But that was something I specifically called out in the review I wrote on this movie yesterday. Was that unlike all the other, and we've got a lot of these part ones in the last. We got Dune a couple years ago, and then Spider-Verse and Fast X just in the last couple months.
Mhm.
And none of those, even though I enjoyed all of them immensely, none of them had a good ending, in my opinion. They just kind of,
I agree.
and we're finished. See you in 2 years. This movie gave you catharsis to the emotional arcs. It wrapped up like the central MacGuffin of this movie. And I think, ironically, this was the only movie of those four that actually explicitly said this is a part one. Keep your
Right.
expectations in check. You are not going to see the end of this story. Whereas Dune, and I know, Aaron, you've mentioned this many times, Dune did not even hint that it was going to be, we thought maybe it would be a second part. It was, oops, sorry, you got to wait. I think Fast X had some of that in its marketing, like the beginning of the final ride. And I think we also knew going into Across the Spider-Verse that there would be Beyond the Spider-Verse in a couple years. But
And
it's
those were originally called Part 1 and Part 2.
but they all of them took those off of the mastheads, and I think
Right.
that was a mistake, because when the audience doesn't know they're going to be sort of teased without an ending, I think that can make people grumpy and upset. Like, wait a minute, the dam explodes and then Dom and his kid are just sitting here. Like, what? Like, that's such a terrible way to end a movie. But if you explicitly called out this is just Fast X Part 1,
It's still a terrible way to end a movie.
I think it's still terrible, but it's a little bit more able to be forgiven, in my opinion. And Dead Reckoning did both. It not only hung the lampshade on what its expectations were. Hey, don't get too invested. We will do another one of these in 2024. But it also had the cleanest and I think most satisfying sort of halfway ending. I think most of what was resolved was what was important and what we were emotionally invested in for these 2.5 hours. And the little breadcrumbs and stuff that they left for the next movie, it's like, okay, good. I can't wait to see what comes next. But we're not left in the lurch without any resolution at all, which would have been, I think, frustrating.
What they kind of did is, with their MacGuffin, is they separated out the what and the why. And this movie was about the what, and the next movie is going to be about the why. And I think it works. I think
they did a great job with
the
that.
What was resolved in this movie. It came to a conclusion. The goal about the MacGuffin came to a conclusion, but we still don't know the why, and so that can be kind of the driving force of resolution for the next movie, and then keep the same MacGuffin. Like, I think that's really an interesting way to kind of go about it. So yeah,
totally agree.
Other thoughts? Any kind of thoughts? Feel free. Say whatever you want to say.
Haley Atwell is awesome. I love her. She was such a good addition. I am a bit disappointed that her inclusion kind of comes at the expense of sidelining an older character that I think was kind of a fan favorite. But she is so good. And I think she bounces off Tom, especially in the Rome car chase scene, so very well. There's a palpable sort of frenemy chemistry between them, and it's witty, and her alliances are a little bit up in the air and a little bit cloudy. And I love that they play off each other so well. She's capable, but not totally like committed or tuned into what's going on. And so that makes her a really compelling sidekick where, like, okay, I know that she can handle herself physically, but it seems like mentally or intellectually, she doesn't really know what's happening. And she's kind of figuring this out as they go. And I kind of love that as the audience surrogate, we're right there with her, constantly like a bit behind the eight ball. Like, wait, who are we chasing and why? And she's sort of right along with us with those same questions. And I
She's our
appreciated
surrogate.
that.
She's a little bit of an audience surrogate. Very a lot of night and day vibes. I don't know if you remember that movie, but it kind of felt like that kind of team up, which was also Tom Cruise.
And another parallel I wanted to draw was Tomorrow Never Dies. There's a scene where Michelle Yeoh and Pierce Brosnan have to ride a bike while handcuffed. So they have to ride the bike with Michelle in Pierce's lap because it's the only way they can both drive without their own wrists getting in the way. And there's a scene where Haley kind of has to get and mount and get kind of reverse off of.
There's a surprise in that scene that was the biggest laugh of my showing. And it's a cut in the middle of that to reveal something that has happened, and the place just lost it.
Yeah.
It's really well done. Yeah.
Great sequence. And she was, I think, a really good addition to this franchise. I am excited to see how that relationship and how that character develops down the road, because there's a lot of potential there. But I love that they don't make her OP. They don't make her like this just all powerful, all knowing super spy. She's kind of somewhat skilled, but she's still out of her depth and needs help. And I think that makes her an interesting foil for Tom, because he basically is OP. There's nothing he can't do.
Right. Andrew, some thoughts?
I want to talk about why I don't love this movie just real quick.
Sure.
To be fair, I'm with you on that. There are a lot of things I don't like. So what do you got?
Yeah. The villain in this movie, Isai Morales, like, he's giving a good performance, don't get me wrong. I think he has a presence to him that is like really ominous, but I don't understand his motivation.
I was going to say the word motivation was the big red flag for me. Like, wait, who's working for what, and why do they even care? And doesn't this hurt them if they go through? And the whole time I was kind of like, so it's just AI, and AI is evil because it was
Skynet.
It was that was the big thing for me. Like, I don't know, this feels
Which here, in my opinion, it's a great concept for a villain. It really is, but you need a physical presence to have something to combat. So whenever, and you can't have a giant robot walking around. That would ruin the entire movie. That'd be horrible.
we're not going to have James Spader as Ultron just swoop in on the train at the end of the movie.
I also think that we need to leave the door open that things may not be as they seem.
And I think that's a great point. Is as well as this was as a self-contained movie, I am excited and interested and hopeful that the Gabriel character receives more, pathos in the next installment, where his backstory makes sense, his motivations kind of lock into what we want them to be. But in a franchise that gave us Solomon Lane and John Lark and whomever Philip Seymour Hoffman played in the third one, like great cinematic villains, this one was like, I don't really care.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, and they try and shoehorn in at the beginning of this some sort of, long lost friction between him and Ethan, and
that felt totally. I didn't.
Like, why? You don't need that. It doesn't add anything at all.
And I was also a touch confused because it felt like they were referencing moments from the first movie, and I'm like, I don't think this guy was in the '96 original, but maybe he was, and I forget. It kind of looked like they were trying to show clips from the '96 one, and I was like, I don't remember this guy, but maybe he was there.
I'm going to be honest. I thought I had just forgotten him. I thought he was in the movie. I literally came out thinking, oh, I totally forgot that guy was in that movie.
No, they just shoehorned in. They de-aged him and everything for fill in the blank.
Maybe they should have had Emilio Estevez come back and be like, with missing an eyeball, just be like, Ethan, you left me for dead in Prague, and I got killed in an elevator shaft, but I'm still alive. And
there is a character that comes back from the first movie that I am pumped is back in.
That's not a spoiler to say, right? Henry Curzon, who plays Kittredge, who was the director of the CIA in the first movie, or director of one of the acronyms, right? He was in this, and not only is he in this movie, Kittredge is in this a lot actually, and he has some good, like, beefy one-on-one scenes with Tom Cruise that I was like, yes, I love this contentions. It's sort of like a father-son dynamic.
Yeah.
There's like, Kittredge is only a couple years older than Tom Cruise, but there's definitely like this, like, Dad, I'm not going to do what you tell me. And it's like, well, you better be back when I tell you. I love their sort of father-son dynamic where there's like, I'm going to give you a long leash because I trust you'll come back. But at the same time, everything you're doing, I don't want to know about it. It's sort of off radar. It's not sanctioned, but they trust each other, but like not really. I loved his character in this way more than I think he was in the first movie.
Yeah. I also love the technology in this movie. I love some of the things it's doing with the idea of visual replacement, security visual replacement. Some of that stuff was really interesting. And the idea of, how impossible it is to escape technology. So, like, if technology is the villain, how do you escape that villain? It's almost impossible. I thought
there's that great
really well.
Scene of dialogue where Rebecca Ferguson is like, well, we tracked it down. And then Tom Cruise is like, well, what was your handler? Who told you this? How did he tell you? From a text message? And then, like, the entire audience is like, oh, shoot. Everything we know could be based on a lie. And it is a game-changing, get the wind knocked out of you kind of revelation that perhaps everything we thought we believed about this franchise could all be a lie. And I love that underpins all of the drama in this movie. It's all potentially just a setup to frame the IMF crew and get them in a spot where they're overexposed.
My last thing that is keeping me from loving this movie is there are two characters in this, played by Shea Wiggum and Greg Tarzan Davis. They're the operatives that are trying to stop them.
Yeah, these pursuing agents that are just like always a step behind. They're in the background of every scene.
Yeah, I don't understand the purpose for those people, because we've seen in how many Mission Impossible movies are we up to now? Is this 7?
This is 7, yeah.
Okay. So we've seen in 7 movies, every single movie, one branch of the government is like, nope, we got to take care of Ethan Hunt. And, it's like, how have you not learned by this point? And did at any moment in the movie they feel like a threat to Ethan Hunt?
It is frustrating that nobody has a memory.
Role. I don't think their role is to feel like a threat. In fact, I think it's exactly the opposite. I think they represent a character that we see sometimes in these kinds of movies that is another type of audience surrogate, where it's like they're outside of what's going on, but they also have a little bit of power, and they are figuring things out with us. Like, they have a transference of allegiance that's going on. Like, that's their evolution. And I think that's evident in some of the things that happen towards the end. I actually kind of liked those characters, but I thought they were also nice levity as well. I thought some of the things they did added.
I enjoyed their inclusion, but in a movie that also had Palm Klementieff and Vanessa Kirby and whoever Vanessa Kirby's like brother or that other guy. There's just a lot of like ancillary characters that I think with a tighter script could have been combined into 1 or 2 characters. I don't think we needed like 2 separate wordless assassins following Tom. I think we could have just had Gabriel and one.
I thought Shea had some good lines. Am I wrong? I don't think he was wordless.
Shea did, but did we need Palm Klementieff and Vanessa Kirby's character?
Davis.
I mean, Palm was a crucial part of the plot. I don't know. Like
I agree that they weren't that they were crucial, but I feel like there's just a lot of characters. Sure. Where in a tighter script that might have been 1 or 2 people that share those scenes kind of get combined, and those character moments get combined into one.
I can see what you're saying. I don't know that I agree, but I can see what you guys are saying.
And then again, it's not.
With Aaron. I'm with Aaron. I love the Palm character actually.
I liked her too, and I really appreciated her arc throughout the course of the movie. But when you also have 2 female sidekicks, and you have these 2 CIA guys trying to track him down, and 2 villains, and the AI, and just the general danger of jumping off cliffs. It's like, is there too many things trying to kill Tom Cruise in this movie? Nope. Maybe. Maybe.
And Gravity. Can't forget Gravity.
Right.
Gravity's always trying to kill Tom Cruise.
But I mean, I'm mostly splitting hairs. I think for me, this ranks in the middle of the 7-picture franchise. But when the other 3 above it are so good, I do want to qualify that like being 4th best is a very good movie.
Yeah. I've heard people saying that this is their favorite Mission Impossible. Good for you. Nothing compares to Fallout for me.
Is it really for you, Aaron? Your favorite?
Yeah,
Aaron's raising his hand.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was more in this from beginning to end than I was with Fallout. Now, I will say, we are never unaware of how environment can impact our experiences, and I was in a good place when I saw this. I had
you were drunk.
Yes, I was smashed out of my mind. No, I did not expect to be seeing it. I got an email about a press screening where I was. I don't usually get to go to press screenings because they don't have them here where I live. And since I was visiting somewhere else, they were like, hey, yeah, come to the press screening and bring someone. And so I had a great friend with me who I don't usually get to watch movies with. We both had a great time. So it's one of those things where I understand that my experience is impacted by the surrounding context. So that might be part of it, but it'll take another watch or 2 before I can maybe clear-eyed say it. But I was in it for this.
I appreciate the context and the honesty, and totally agree that the environment and the experience of the moment can really color your perception of a film, at least plus or minus a point or two. For me, this was a fantastic film, one of my favorites of the year. But Fallout is perhaps the best action movie of the decade, or at least last decade. So for me, it doesn't quite reach the heights of that helicopter chase with Henry Cavill at the end. Like that was just on another level. And this gets close in a few points, but I think at 2 hours and 45 minutes, there's a huge chunk in the middle where I'm like, I don't know who's fighting for what or why. And I want to get to the dirt bike. Can you show me the dirt bike? I know that's coming up. Just get to that. And then when it did, I was like, I'm back. I want this. And then the last half an hour of the movie was incredible. But
I am possibly the only one on planet Earth that did not know that moment was coming. It's wild how much of the marketing apparently it's in. Like,
it's everywhere.
When I was putting together the art, all of the art is about it, and like I had no idea.
I am so surprised you missed. I went no trailers as well for this, but I still saw glimpses of it everywhere. I knew there was a bike and a cliff. I assumed you would jump off and okay, that's exactly what happened. But,
I go cruise blind, man. If I see cruise on anything, I'm just like I'm not paying attention. So
I commend your ability to avoid what was just one of the biggest print and advertising blitzes of the last 10 years. It was everywhere.
I've said before, I have gone through a transition that I think has really helped, which is I've gone from, I really want to watch trailers, but I'm not going to watch them because I know it's a better experience when I don't watch them. I'm not going to watch them. So I'll force myself not to. I kind of want to watch it. No, I'm not going to watch it. And after a couple years of realizing how much better movies were without watching the marketing material, it started to transform into a genuine not wanting to. Like, I don't have to fight myself anymore. I genuinely don't want to see them.
Yeah, no, I still close my eyes when I sit down early. It's like, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this.
So, in fact, I will mention this is one of my negatives about the movie. Quit spoiling the movie in the opening credits. I literally closed. I literally closed my eyes during the opening credits. I know they have. I close my eyes during the opening credits. I'm like, I shouldn't have to do that during the movie.
I did that too, and I was like, no, I don't want to. I was kind of like literally like a horror movie. I was like looking through fingers, like I don't. And I'm just gonna vibe out to Lauren Balfe's score, which again was awesome.
It's so good.
I listened to all 39 tracks yesterday. He is such a good composer. And he mixes all these like really heavy, moody drums, and it gets you pumped for some of those sequences. It's like, yes, let's bring it.
I had a lot of cognitive dissonance this time that I haven't really felt before in the other ones during the opening, spots where they show stuff. Where part of me was like, oh, I don't want to see because I want to see it, when it happens in the movie. And the other part of me was like, no, the director did this as part of the movie and the experience. They are purposefully using these visual images as they intended. A marketing team didn't do this. A director did this. So
I kind of half watched.
So like I have this cognitive dissonance thing going where I'm like, I don't want to watch. And I close my eyes, but I may watch next time. From what I could
tell, they were just it was like a side of a gun or the side of an explosion. It's like, okay, I don't really know what these are in context, but you can see Hallie Atwell's face. And if you had gone into this movie truly blind, it's like, wait, who's she?
Right.
I knew she was in the movie, but I think if you had really gone in blind, the credits can spoil a film. That's always been true because I'll be watching a movie and be, ooh, John Don Baker's in this. Like I will call out names and be like, oh, I'm expecting, Anthony, Philip Baker Hall to show up at some point.
Yeah.
Like sometimes just reading the credits can kind of spoil things.
Reading's the problem. We should never read anything.
Go in literally blind.
All right, let's wrap it up, guys. One last thing from either of you before we move on.
It's a Mission Impossible movie, so no post-credit scene.
That is true. I did wonder with this one, since it was a purposeful part one, but nope. Yep. Anything else, John?
There's a quote at the beginning of the movie where Shea Whitman, is that the guy's name? Wiggum, where he describes Ethan Hunt as a mind-reading, shape-shifting incarnation of chaos. I was like, "You goddamn right. That is
you
my
didn't
man."
want that guy in the movie.
Yeah, no, that was such like a pump up the audience. Like the audience knows who Ethan Hunt is, and it was like just as a reminder, this guy is an incarnation of chaos, and he is going to just wreak havoc for the next 3 hours. And that was a great way because I think we get that scene before we see Ethan. I think that might be right before. Because he comes into the movie kind of late. He's like 20 minutes go by before we even see Ethan. And I kind of appreciated that was our introduction or reintroduction to the super spy.
My one last thing is God bless Carrie Elwes. It's always good to see Carrie
He's
show
great.
up and
He's
show up and stuff.
he does what, like maybe three pages of lines in this movie, and he's so good.
Oh, I have to mention Ving and Simon as well. I know they're in all of them. I am continually struck. I shouldn't say all of them. They're in the most recent ones.
Yeah.
I am continually struck by Simon Pegg's addition to this cast because he offers this empathy that a lot of the other characters don't have because they're kind of robotic. And so there is a puzzle in this movie that he is responsible for solving, let's just say. And
it was emotional.
I got emotional. I literally got emotional during that. That is not a scene you would usually get emotional in, but I just think he sells it so well, and he's such a ray of actual humanity amongst assassin robots that I think it works really, really well. I don't think you could overstate his importance to the chemistry of this.
I 100% agree. He's like what Paul Walker was to the Fast franchise. And I feel like you need that sort of balance to Tom Cruise's robotic, over-the-top enthusiasm. You need someone that's more grounded and emotional and more feminine, for lack of a better word. Someone who's more sort of in touch with like what's going on at a human level. And that scene in particular was great. There's a scene later where he's arguing with Ethan in the car, and it's just you can feel like him rot over. Like I don't want to tell him to do this, but like just keep driving. You're fine. It's good. And it's like I love this Benji character. He is such a good addition to the show.
Yeah.
Well,
totally
what makes the tension in these movies work so well is the characters, like who they are as individuals, that makes it so tense, because you have Ethan, who is a character who will sacrifice his life for anybody on his team. Like without a moment's hesitation, he would sacrifice himself. But then you have characters like Benji and Luther who, no matter what, don't sacrifice yourself for me. Don't do it. Like, I am not worth it. So you have these moments where if somebody's in trouble, you genuinely don't know which way it's going to go. And it's just great storytelling.
Yeah.
So, Christopher McQuarrie, congrats on, I hope good things happen for you in your career.
I mean, I think he's just going to keep making movies with Tom. Like, I think I think that's his deal.
He's a good young up-and-comer director, and I just want good things for him.
Yeah. I hope it works out. All right, there you go. That is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Let's move on to our second review. Let's talk a little bit about Asteroid City. Set in a fictional American desert town circa 1955, the itinerary of a junior stargazer/space cadet convention, organized to bring together students and parents from across the country for fellowship and scholarly competition, is spectacularly disrupted by world-changing events. Gum, gum, gum. Asteroid City is Wes Anderson's latest film. It stars the entirety of the city of Hollywood. And what did you guys think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it? Or it was just okay? Andrew, kick us off on this one.
It's okay.
Just okay for Andrew. John?
I liked it.
John liked it. Guys, it's stellar week for me, pun intended. I loved this movie.
Really? Wow.
I really enjoyed it. Rare are the weeks where we talk about two movies that I unabashedly love. This is one of those weeks. Wes Anderson is an interesting one for me because I did come to it a little bit late.
Same.
And I don't know if I were to go rewatch some of the early ones I watched, if maybe I would see them with different eyes. I mean, like maybe I've adjusted to the language of the Anderson. I don't know. But I have a delineating moment where I started liking his movies, and it was Fantastic Mr. Fox. The only one before that that I have that I like is Bottle Rocket. That's the only one that I like. The others I don't hate, but they just did not seem to be for me. And I know that's sacrilege for a lot of Wes Anderson fans. I know, like you mentioned, The Royal Tenenbaums is a lot of people's favorite Wes Anderson movie. I didn't get it at all. I did not like that movie. And I do wonder if I watched it again, if I would, because something started happening to me with Fantastic Mr. Fox on and Moonrise Kingdom just kind of locked it in for me. Is I started to really fall in love with how he lets his story be told. And there is a style of acting in a Wes Anderson movie that goes along with the style of shooting and visuals that can feel so performed. It can feel so very staged. And that typically is not a good thing when you're watching a movie. But what it does is it really allows, at least me, to focus on the actual story that is taking place in front of me. And because I'm often distracted by the pretty visuals and all the symmetry and all the stuff that Wes Anderson does so well, it allows me to really kind of linger and be in there with these characters. And I've just locked in, and I had such a good time with this. I think it's saying some really interesting things about what it means to feel like part of a group, what it means to feel like you don't belong or you do belong, or why do you belong? How do you belong? What makes you alien to those around you? What makes you strange? Most of these characters have moments where they deal with them being different or being strange. I think he's doing some really interesting things here. You add to that the fact, and I know I'm talking a lot this episode, but it's because I loved both of these movies.
Go for it, brother.
You add to that the fact that it feels like Wes Anderson wrote himself a Charlie Kaufman movie with some of the stuff he's doing with recursiveness and being inside of, a play within a play within a play, like that kind of stuff. And it's just this next level of meta-ness for me that I really enjoy. I also think the movie is saying incredible things about loss, how to process loss, how to deal with loss, and ends in a way that feels surreal, but also feels like the only way this movie could end it, in making the point that it is impossible to I'm just going to say it's impossible to get back up if you don't fall down. And there's something really interesting in that concept and in that idea that this movie is going for. So I just thought about it for hours afterwards, and I love when a movie does that to me. So yeah, I had a good time with Asteroid City.
Delighted that you had such a positive experience with this movie.
Yeah.
I do think that, Aaron, if you go back and you watch some of the older Wes Anderson films, you might appreciate it more, because I think this film, more than any other of his recent works, feels the most like his older works. It feels like Royal Tenenbaums. It feels like Rushmore or Life Aquatic. It feels like those. My issue with the movie, though, is while I do think the movie, for me, what I picked up on was it was talking about how people deal with the unknown is really what I was picking up from this one. But I think that the movie went about it in a very convoluted and unnecessarily lengthy way. I don't think the meta element of this movie worked for me, because that's something that I really haven't seen much in Wes Anderson. So it kind of took me out of it a bit. I'm not saying that I want him to be a copy paste of every single one of his movies. I want the guy to make whatever he wants. I'm just saying why it didn't work for me. Real quick, just a random thought in my head. Why haven't we been getting Matt Dillon in more Wes Anderson movies? Because he was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
He only had the one scene, but it was great.
It's the scene that made me laugh the most out of the entire movie, just because he was talking about that car like he was going off onto this great war adventure. All right, we're gonna have to go around the left flank to take care of this. It could be a carburetor, and it's
the Rupert Friend stuff really worked for me too. I found a lot of that very funny as well. Him playing a cowboy and then the song,
the magical spurs.
Yes, yeah.
Did you pick up on that?
The song was the part that I was speaking more when they come in to help the kid do the song or whatever, and then they all just start dancing, and then it cuts to the parents have finally found their way to watch or whatever, and they're like, "What is going on with our kids right now?" That's funny stuff.
the best part was that Rupert Friend, whenever he would walk around, you would hear spurs clinking.
Uh-huh.
But you looked at his feet; he wasn't wearing
He wasn't wearing
spurs.
spurs. Yeah.
No. So that got a good chuckle out of me too.
Yeah. Some thoughts from you, John. We haven't heard much from you about this movie.
I think first and foremost, the visuals of this movie, this like mid-century visual pastiche, is one of the most gorgeous looking movies Wes has ever done. I think combining that desert pastel colors with his symmetrical and asymmetrical framing was just chef's kiss. It looked so gorgeous. I loved that color palette and the different color spaces they were using for this movie. And I really vibed with all of the fun and quirky dialogue, and I thought the script was engaging, and there were so many interesting threads going on. I don't know that I was sort of tuned in closely enough to pick up on all of the metatextual elements that you did, Aaron, but I appreciate you sharing some, because I think that helps color and contextualize some of my experience with it. But the one thing that I both loved and appreciated, but also simultaneously was a little annoyed by, was this movie felt like it was populated entirely by celebrity cameos. Like, I loved Schwartzman and Johansson. They did great work together.
Yeah.
Everybody else felt like, Tilda Swinton, I'm here for 2 scenes. Tom Hanks, I'll do 3 scenes.
Yep.
Matt Dillon, I'll do a scene of Fisher Stevens. I don't even think he has lines in this, but he gets up and walks around for a shot. Willem Dafoe, I think he probably did 1 day of shooting. Edward Norton is on maybe 4 pages of script. And I appreciated that every person was a big name, but it was a little distracting. It was like, oh, there's Jeff Goldblum. Oh, you missed him. He's gone. He's not in the movie anymore. And some of that bothered me. Other parts of it I enjoyed. I felt like there were too many things and too many people for me to focus on. Like, who am I actually supposed to care about? Because there was like a movie without a protagonist, if that makes sense.
Oh, I think Jason Schwartzman's the protagonist.
Yeah, no, he is, and I empathize with his plot a lot. But if he is the protagonist, he got maybe 20-30% of the screen time. I feel like it was.
You really think so? I really feel like the movie focused on him. Maybe I'm misremembering, because even like he was kind of he was the most prominent part of the text and the subtext metatextually.
Yes.
And it was about him as an actor trying to grow, and him as a person in the play trying to grow. Yeah, I feel like he was in more than 30% of the movie.
Maybe that might just be, again, my perception, that I felt like I was interested in his story the most, and then we would frequently take detours with Jeffrey Wright over here in the government and the kids and their little astronomy club, and then we'd be over here with Steve Carell restocking the vending machines, and there was a lot of other things that kept kind of pulling my focus, which again is kind of Wes's vibe, right? He likes to just throw everything at you. Everything is sort of surface level. We go really wide, but not really deep. And at least that's my limited understanding of kind of how he sets up some of his scripts. And I enjoyed it a lot. For me, I still prefer a couple of his other movies, Mr. Fox, Grand Budapest, I think were stronger. But this is like an A or a B plus tier in the Wes Anderson catalog. And I do have to admit, after hearing both of you mention it, I remembered that I have regretfully never seen Royal Tenenbaums, and that might be very, very near the top of my list of shame.
I'm excited to hear what you think about it. Many people do consider it his best, and I remember feeling very alone after I saw it. That in Life Aquatic, those are my least favorite Wes Anderson. I just came out of both of those going, what do people see in this? I'm missing it.
I only saw Rushmore for the first time like 9 months ago. Like I'm getting into Wes's catalog.
Did you see French Dispatch? Did you see French?
I did, and that was what, year ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was just like a year ago. Yeah,
and that was the same thing, I think, for Asteroid City. Like a lot of different things were going on. That was more vignetted, so individual.
That was specifically designed to be a magazine, right? Like the vignettes were articles within a magazine. I kind of like what he's doing. He's finding a venue to tell stories how he likes to tell them that kind of makes sense, right? Like the vignettes of a magazine feel like they should be symmetrical or artistic or look a certain way. The idea of a movie within a play within a movie, like feels like you should experience some of those things. So I'm attracted to this stage and whatever he's working out and whatever he's doing. I also have to say that I had some scenes in here where I was just riveted on the dialogue, even though both of the actors were given, pretty steady Wes Anderson performances, right? Like you could never accuse anybody in a Wes Anderson movie of overacting, right?
No,
Like
it's very rigid and stiff.
it's very subtle. But I cannot wait to watch the Schwartzman Margot Robbie scene again. I thought I was captivated by it. The idea, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like it where they are I don't think this is too spoilery, but they are reenacting a scene that was cut from the movie that we are watching. And so when she's talking about it, instead of delivering the lines as the character, she's saying things like, and then I said, and then you said, and then I said, and you just realize this is Wes Anderson boiling it all the way down to the script, right? Like if the characters already being subtle and subdued wasn't enough for you, we're now going to go beyond that, where they're literally just saying the lines that they would say as if they were telling somebody about the lines that they would say. And I found it to be fascinating and captivating and kind of moving, which I just, I really, really enjoyed that scene. I enjoyed some of the Scarlett Johansson, Schwartzman scenes as well. I thought some of those were really well done.
I appreciate you diving into that. I will revisit it with new eyes. And you said you can't wait. You don't have to. This movie actually is already on digital, which is how I saw it this week. So
yeah, it came out on VOD this week, I think.
Yeah, like 2.5 weeks after it was released wide. Well, it's already on.
Correct,
VOD,
and we should say we are reviewing this, 3 weeks after it came out as well. We're just getting around.
Still not even a month.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what's happening, especially with a lot of these. But it also performed well for a Wes Anderson movie. It
was one of his best opening weekends, or best wide weekends, I think I should say.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't going up against much, also. There wasn't a lot opening around. But going back to the scene you're talking about, Aaron, that's for me, and why it didn't work for me is while you see this great breakdown of like how it's all coming down to the script, I'm watching that scene and I'm going, this is a character, or this is a director / writer who doesn't have enough confidence in his original story that he has to bring in this. I hate saying pretentious art house because I think that Wes Anderson is so much more than that. He's definitely a character, and his movies are a reflection of that. But I just can't look at that scene, and hopefully I'll watch, because you know me, I'm a huge Wes Anderson film. I genuinely like or love all of his movies. I would say this is near the bottom for me, unfortunately. But I want to love it because I love him so much. So hearing everything that you've said, I want to go back and listen to it again.
I'm struck by moments. I'm struck by the way that Anderson plays with form and, again, allows the emotions to speak from the situation, even when the actors aren't over-emoting them. I find that really interesting. There's a scene I really enjoy of Jeffrey Wright delivering a lesson, and it's one of the most interesting things how he is doing performative things at this session, like switching from a mic and then moving this mic over here and moving to somewhere else. And it's just it's almost like a choreographed dance. And it's like you can't help but think, okay, this is a purposeful way for us to be activated and interested in what he is doing and what he is saying. But it's also an interesting statement on this scene and what it is doing and what it is saying. And I just had moment after moment like that. I found the meeting between the Schwartzman character who wanted the part and the Norton character, who I believe was the writer, if I remember correctly. Their meeting scene I found really interesting and fascinating. It closes in a really specific, interesting way that I think is meaningful, probably more than I know to Wes Anderson. And I don't know. I'm really fascinated by what he's doing. And if nothing else, even if it doesn't connect to you, if nothing else, you watch a Wes Anderson movie like this one and you just go, man, swing away, Meryl. You know what I mean? Just like, just keep going, right? Like I love big swings and I cannot lie.
I was going to say everything you've explained so far has and will encourage me, I think, to revisit this. I feel I am not going to be humble and say I'm a stupid person. I feel like my media literacy, I think, is better than most people. But I watch Wes Anderson movies and I feel dumb. I'm like, I don't know that I totally get what he's trying. There's so many metaphors and layers to all of this. And I watch a movie like Asteroid City, like I love the idea and the conceit and all the colors and the ideas and the film within a play within a whatever. But I don't know if I really get it. And this is a movie I think I would appreciate rewatching a little bit down the road where I can kind of contextualize some of the stuff you've brought to this discussion and maybe appreciate it more. Because I know that on first viewing, I was a little bit confused and a little bit distracted. And I was like, I like it. I'm enjoying it. It's funny. I'm engaged. But I also don't know if I am supposed to understand this or that, or if I'm supposed to be kind of confused and just entertained. And but that's been my experience for all of Wes's film. I always leave them going like, I think I love that, but I also don't understand half of it. So, okay, 8 out of 10. That was fun. And that was kind of my experience with this one.
There are two very specific self-referential things that happen in the movie that I thought were fun too, where the movie sets up something that's going to happen later and then pays it off later. Because of the conceit with which it's working, it's able to operate on both of those levels where people are talking about, oh, what if I performed it this way? And then later you get to see how they performed it. You know, like that kind of stuff. I found really interesting
that was
and
fun.
entertaining as well.
I recall a couple of those, and that was great.
Yeah. So, do you guys have any other thoughts? I've talked way too much about this movie.
No, honestly, you had the most insightful stuff to say. Like,
I was like a adult man, like film, very good feeling, looks nice. Like I don't have a lot on this one. I'm sorry. I did double check because I love my stats and numbers. Royal Tenenbaums is number 4 most popular movie of the 2000s that I have not seen.
There you go.
Like I said, high on that list of shame. That is 4th. I got to go check it out.
Yeah. My one last thing then will be, I think the 3 little girls in this are great. I love them so much.
I enjoyed that a lot. They reminded me a lot of my kids in the best way.
They're clearly,
I just love them and Tom Hanks together.
Yeah. They are clearly supposed to be like kid versions of like the witches from Macbeth or something, it's like they clearly have this thing going. The one little, I don't know if you noticed this. I don't think that this is a spoiler. The one little girl says she's a vampire or whatever. And I swear there's a moment in the movie where she has vampire teeth, not like fake ones, like she's laughing or something. You see, she literally has real vampire teeth.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I could be wrong. I could be making that up. But I love those little girls. They were amazing. All right, there you go. That is Asteroid City. It is in theaters and, as John mentioned, available on VOD right now.
Pick your poison.
Before we head into our best ever challenge, just a reminder that we do a podcast before the podcast. We do a Moops show where Andrew puts together some fun stuff for us, including some things you may know from previous eras of Sif Pop, like the Drunk Sif Pop makes an appearance this week. So if you're interested in that, that's something that is a perk of some of our patrons, our Sif Pop members at patreon.com/SifPop. So go check it out. And to those who already throw a couple bucks a month our way, thank you again. We really, really do appreciate it. So thank you for doing that. And I hope you enjoy the extra content that comes your way each week. All right, let's move into the best ever challenge. We're going to do the best ever part 1s. Now, this might be a little bit difficult. We may have different ideas about what could or couldn't fit here. This happens in the best ever challenge sometimes.
So I want to call out a couple sort of ground rules. Aaron, in the sort of prerequisite email that you email, you specifically said, I think it was a great example. Back to the Future does not count because that original movie was not planned to set up sequels.
Correct.
But Fellowship of the Ring would count because that was part of a planned trilogy. My question, and it would affect my rankings, does Avengers Infinity War count? Because it was planned to have a
Yes.
sequel, but it was also Avengers 3. It didn't have to specifically be the first part
It's part
of
one. That's part one. They
It's-
produced those
okay.
at the same
It's a
time.
part one
It's-
because Endgame was a part 2.
yeah,
right. So
Yeah.
we're not counting that as Avengers 3. It's Avengers Infinity War
Correct.
part 1. Okay.
Correct.
I assumed so. Just wanted to call that out. So we're all
Yeah.
sort of qualifying and expelling the right choices. Who wants to go first?
We'll go number 5 to number 1. I'll kick us off. I at number 5 have Dune Part 1. At
Same.
number 5. Oh, nice.
There
I
you
love how
go.
you started the sounder. That was amazing. All right, we'll wait to talk about that here in a bit. Andrew, what is your number? Well, no, I guess we're to John because Andrew, yours was
Yep.
also doing part 1. So, John, what's your number 5?
It Chapter 1.
Good choice.
You can hit the Trump button.
All right, on to our number 4s.
Yeah.
Just flying right through this. Number 4, I have Kill Bill Volume 1 in at number 4. These
Honorable mention for me. That was a good pick.
Yeah, it's still interesting to me why directors decide, or producers or studios or whoever ends up making the decision, which movies to split into two or which not. My assumption is when a director's like, I'm going to have to take 4.5 hours to tell this story, then the studio's like, yeah, let's release 2 movies. Because I really think Quentin counts this as a single movie. I really think he does. Like in his, I'm going to make so many movies, before I'm done. I think he said I'm going to make 10 movies before I'm done.
Yeah,
or
he
whatever.
does. He counts the Kill Bills as a single.
Yeah, he
story.
counts this as one movie, and but the Kill Bill experience is certainly an experience. I am not a huge Tarantino fan, but there's something incredibly specifically for me beautiful about this movie, and I think it has some of the best needle drops. Which is saying a lot for Quentin, but it has.
It is saying a lot. He's pretty good about incorporating.
He's great
music.
with needle drops, but I think some of his best are in this movie.
I'm surprised to hear you pick this because, not to put too fine a point on it, it's excessively violent, and you generally kind of shy away from movies that sort of glorify for the sake of glorification.
Yeah, but see, for a movie like this, though, the violence to me in this movie feels like a
cartoon.
I was going to say a surrealist painting. I was going to say like there's an artistry to what's going on here that isn't
not meant
just,
to be real.
Yeah, isn't just bang 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 reload, bang 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 reload. And it's a lot of sword play, which I think is a lot cooler and a lot more interesting if you're going to do violence. So yeah.
If you're gonna go all out.
Just go for it. Just bring out that katana and start chopping limbs.
Andrew, what is your number 4?
This is where I have It.
Oh,
Nice.
okay, nice. I had it in my honorable mentions.
I love this first movie. The reason why there's going to be a lot of people who are like, Andrew, you have It above Dune. Yes, I do, because It is a completed movie. I'm sure once Dune comes out, then it would make it would be higher up on my list. But no, I love It. I think that, me, I'm a Stephen King aficionado. I love
this
the
is one of
guy's
the
body
best
of work.
adaptations I think of any King property, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I actually think It is better than The Shining, and I don't know if that's sacrilegious or not, but It might be my favorite. Well, The Misery's up there too. And Shawshank. Oh wow, he's done a lot of good stories.
I was about to say The Green Mile.
He's done a lot of good stuff, hasn't he? He's done a lot of good stuff.
Has.
I mean, it's definitely better than like Pet Cemetery and The Langoliers, but yeah,
the Langoliers.
I think one reason why I loved it and I put it in fifth is the kids. I think this feels so much like that first season of Stranger Things. It encapsulates that Rob Reiner Stand By Me sort of ethos of like, here are the kids, they're going on an adventure, it's summer, they're going to stay out late, get into trouble, and it captures that feeling of like summer in the suburbs where I grew up, where my kids are going to grow up so very well. And Skarsgård is just like, oh my gosh, this man is terrifying in some of these scenes.
Mm-hmm.
It's
that opening bit with Georgie underneath the storm drain.
Gosh.
It's some of the best shot daytime horror you can imagine, like seeing. It's so
legit.
well done. Yeah. Good job, Muschietti.
Have you ever done a best ever? You ever done a best ever challenge on Stephen King adaptations? Because I feel like that would be a competitive.
I don't know. I don't know if we have or not.
We have
I'll
not.
have to consult.
Keep that in
I'll
your
have to
back
consult
pocket.
the archive that doesn't exist.
We have not, by the way. I'm 99% sure we have.
Now it's time to talk Dune, which I have 4th and you guys had it 5th.
Nice.
Yep.
What did we all like about it, besides the fact that it didn't have an ending?
Well, you had it at number 4, so you get to start because you had it the highest.
I don't want to take up too much time. I will say the world building and the visual creation of this planet and this ecosystem and the economy and all of the stuff and the weapons and the commerce and the politics, I thought was realized so much better than the David Lynch version, which is just kind of insane. So just if you watch this like on mute, I'd be like, this is fascinating. I'm into whatever's happening. Even if I don't know what's going on, I loved the look and the feel of everything.
Yeah, it's world building for me. It does the world building in such complete and interesting ways, and I am genuinely excited to see what happens with these characters. I am very excited to see the second half of this movie.
Yeah. Whenever that comes out.
And the visuals too. I think the special effects in this were just absolutely flawless.
Yeah.
There's a reason why Denis is my favorite director.
Mm-hmm.
It's because
really...
it doesn't matter the scale of the movie. He's going to knock it out of the park. He could do something really intimate like Prisoners where, it's really confined. Or he could do something grandiose like Blade Runner or this. Like there is no limit to like how big of a universe you want to make. He can deliver.
Yeah, he's been. I've only seen 6 of his movies, but my least favorite was Sicario, and I think I gave that like an 8 out of 10. Like he's been doing really good work.
Yeah,
I mean, Arrival is fantastic. Enemy is another excellent film. I'm really excited to see what Dunk Part 2 has for in store. That's this year, right? Dune comes out in December. This year, 2023.
I think it's supposed to.
Yeah, awesome. Number 3.
Number 3 is
I'm just waiting for Dune Part 2 to come out, and it starts off with Dune Part 2, and then the little parentheses comes up of 3, and I'm just gonna lose my mind. I'm just gonna lose my mind. I'm just gonna
just throw chairs across the room.
I'm done with this.
I'm overturning the tables. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Going full Real Housewife on them.
All right, our number 3s. My number 3 is Avatar: The Way of Water. Might be the stretchiest of my picks, but it is definitely a movie made with another movie in production to be part of a completed story.
I will admit I did not consider this as a quote part 1, so it is not even in my honorable mentions. It would be higher than what we have it now, but let's talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fairly recent review, so we don't have to rehash everything. But I have recently watched it again, and it continues to grow in my estimation.
Hold up? I've only seen it that one time.
I have now seen it 4 times, and it gets better every time. I think Cameron is doing genius level story setup in this movie, while again telling a complete story in the movie itself. I am so pumped to see where specifically the Neytiri, Spider, Quaritch stuff goes in the next movies. It's really amazing how well that has already been set up. So good stuff.
For my money, the best director living today is Jim Cameron. He I don't think has ever made he's never made a bad film. He's never made a not incredible film. Like his worst movie is exceptional, which I think would probably be like The Abyss.
Piranha 2?
I don't know if I count that. I know he personally doesn't count it.
Of course he doesn't.
Right. If you exclude Piranha 2, like his worst movie is like The Abyss. And like that movie's incredible.
Well, I just need The Abyss to come out in 4K. Like it doesn't even have a Blu-ray.
Fingers crossed.
It doesn't even have a Blu-ray yet. Like you can't.
I know.
Like, so, and that's a Cameron thing. And he said he just has to get them perfect and get them perfect. Get them perfect. I hope I'm still around when they come out.
I've been wanting to rewatch that ever since the submersible Titan, was all over the news a couple of weeks back. I'm like, I'm in the mood for a good underwater movie where the heroes aren't morons, and The Abyss isn't available to watch in HD. So I'm like, maybe I'll wait.
Maybe I'll watch Sphere.
No, not quite as good, but sure.
All right. That is my number 3. Andrew, what is your number 3?
I'm going to go with Across the Spider-Verse.
I will trump that.
Trump!
All right. John, what is your number 3?
This is where I have The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship
Trump!
of the Ring.
We'll go on to our number 2s. Number 2 is where I have Infinity War.
Me too.
Same.
Oh, we got Infinity War number 2. Very nice.
All right, it's a great
yeah.
movie. We all love it. We've talked about it plenty.
Mhm.
I still think it's the lesser of the two movies, but I know you guys disagree with that, and it's okay to be wrong. Thanos has a great arc in this movie. It's one of the best, I think, villain arcs in any movie. It's like an hour of the screen time is devoted to Thanos, and I love that.
Yeah.
It's his movie,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yes, we have talked much about our love for this movie. I think the only thing I would reiterate is the talking point that now makes me angry when I hear people talking about this movie is and we've talked about this before, but it's getting more and more annoying. The idea that this movie didn't have, that the dusting in this movie didn't have any stakes. And that just annoys me so much because how far do you take that logic, right? Like, can you not invest yourself in what's happening in the movie itself? You know, like the idea of outside influences of, well, we know they're not actually dead because we know they're going to be in. I don't care. These characters are going through something. Like Tony Stark is holding his protege in his arms, and he says, "I don't want to go." Like that, I just like that. That totally annoys me how people dismiss the actual power of the dusting.
Well, I mean, that criticism is useless because it can apply to any movie at any time.
Yeah,
right.
It's like, oh well. You know, to call back to earlier, like, well, I don't really care that Emilio Estevez got impaled by an elevator and first responsible because Emilio Estevez is still alive in real life. And it's like, okay, so that's just like, it's totally
this
pointless.
movie isn't your real life. This movie is happening to people in a fantasy world.
Yeah.
Right. And in that world, the stakes matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a sign of people being impatient because they knew that they weren't going to get the resolution for like this moment for years. So they're like, oh, well, in that case, it's bad. And I hate it.
Yeah. And
for me, I just wanted to see Iron Man and Captain finally make a truce, team up and fight the bad guy. And I wanted some of that here. And we had to wait all the way to Endgame before we got that moment. That's, I think for me, my favorite moments are with Cap or Iron Man. And they never share a scene in this movie. And that is what really kind of like bothered me. They never, not even a single moment are they together, or even talk to each other. And that, I think, kind of holds it back for me.
There you go. That is our unanimous number 2, Infinity War. So on to our number 1s, which should be pretty obvious. Mine is Fellowship of the Ring. I trumped it from John earlier.
I had it 3rd.
I had it 3. What were you saying, Andrew?
Oh, I was saying, yeah, me too.
Yeah. We've both got this at number 1. Of all the movies, like to find something new to say about, like I do think the more time goes on and more generations of movie lovers, come out, there is a sense that a seismic movie like this loses a little bit of the understanding of its importance. And well, no, I'm not saying it does lose it. I'm saying that it loses the perception of importance because a greater percentage of the people didn't experience that seismic shift that a movie like this brought. And, for instance, like maybe how Jaws would be for our generation. Like we can watch it and recognize how good of a movie it is, how well it's done or whatever, but we didn't experience the first summer blockbuster and how that changed the industry. You know what I mean? And I think Lord of the Rings kind of has that going on now where if you weren't there, it's hard for you to conceptualize how this invented nerd culture in some ways, like nerd movie culture specifically.
I don't think that's incorrect. I think that's fair. This was a seismic shift in filmmaking. And I think history will look on Peter Jackson's trilogy very favorably. He went all out in a way that no filmmaker has, I think, before or since, in terms of verisimilitude and actually getting thousands of extras and authentic costumed pieces and armor and weapons on location in the mountains of New Zealand and this movie will look phenomenal till the end of time.
Yeah.
It holds up so very well, and it pioneered so much of what, I think nerd culture, what we kind of take for granted in that big epic. I mean, it's like with the extended version, it's like an 11-hour film. It's so very incredible. For me, I still prefer the other two over Fellowship. I think Fellowship's the weakest of the first three. But even that, again, even the weakest Lord of the Rings movie is an exceptional experience.
I think that if Aaron and I had to sit down and like discuss like what we would consider Sif's Pop's choice for the greatest movie of all time, I think we would come across saying that Lord of the Rings is the best movie ever made. If we had to like agree on something,
it's possible. Yeah. I mean, we both really like each other's number ones though too. So like, you know, it would be an interesting conversation for sure, but it's definitely
Singing in the Rain and Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Which are very, very different.
Yes.
They're very different movies.
They came out like a decade apart, but
I have Lord of the Rings at number 2, like right after the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So
yeah, and I've got it at like number 3 or 4. So yeah, it probably would be.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't. Maybe forgive me for. I've only been on the show 38 times now, but I did not realize that the two of you held the Lord of the Rings in such high esteem. For me, I have Return of the King ranked 12th all time. So it's not quite a top 10 movie for me, but it's
nice.
Certainly a very
well. And we
John,
also,
I'm going to have to send you my top 100 on Letterboxd.
You should send me that. That'd be I could probably piece together a lot of it, but that would be helpful.
And the other place that Andrew and I agree is we refuse to talk about them as individual movies. We see the three movies as a single film.
I think if you look at it that way, it tops more of my lists. If you look at it as a holistic trilogy, individually, Fellowship's a little bit weaker for me. Return of the King is just phenomenal, flawless. Can't heap enough accolades on it.
Yeah, so technically, if you look at my list on Letterboxd, my number 4 is Fellowship of the Ring. That is a stand-in for the Lord of the Rings. So yeah, I've got Singing in the Rain, Finding Nemo, North by Northwest, and then Lord of the Rings. So it is my number 4.
Those are good picks. I love North by
Thank you.
So good. Not to dilute kind of an anticlimactic, but my number 1 is brand new, and maybe I'm a little too recency biased on this. Across the Spider-Verse. I was just floored by this one. I'm sure you guys loved it as well. I think I listened to the episode where you guys talked about it, and mostly just gushed.
I'm the one on this one that hates it because I like it.
yeah, he was in the same boat I was today. Whenever we were talking about the Mission Impossible,
I really like this movie. I like this movie. Tell me why you love it.
This is so many things going for it in a way. The big swing analogy, right? This is doing things and showing me things and imagery and characters, and this uses the concept of the multiverse. I think it's such an interesting way that parses out way more confliction and ideas that any previous movie has. It isn't just like, oh, look, this one's different. It's like, what if they were different, but also at odds with each other and actively trying to suppress that one element of the multiverse that could have hope? And I thought there were just so many interesting themes, and the animation style and the music and the action and the emotion here was just phenomenal. I worry that and as time, and if I rewatch it, I might come down a bit. I only just saw this for the first time a few weeks ago, so maybe I'll cool off a bit, and Infinity War or Lord of the Rings might top it for me. But this is an exceptional film that I am looking forward to revisiting as soon as it's on digital.
And I hope we get to see the end of it within the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's my only thing is like, it didn't really, it just kind of ends. And I was like, it was just getting good. It was just getting better, I should say.
Honorable mentions. Who wants to go first?
I didn't have any. You guys
John,
mentioned
did you have any
all
others?
the ones that I would have.
I do actually, and Phil pointed out that Andrew and I had the exact same top 5 today, just in slightly different orders, which I think is pretty neat. My honorable mentions: Harry Potter 7, Deathly Hallows Part 1. I also had Kill Bill. I mentioned that. Andrew, surprised you didn't mention this one: Batman: The Dark Knight Returns Part 1, the animated feature from 2018ish. I forget when that came out. That one's
wasn't
The
actually
Dark Knight.
the biggest. Yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of that adaptation of it.
Really?
I love the graphic novel way more.
I don't have reference for the graphic novel, but I do know The Dark Knight Returns is a very famous graphic novel. It's one of the bigger and more well-known properties. That's my only sort of window into that, and I really appreciated it. I would also put Dead Reckoning. I don't know that we usually typically include the current movie in the best ever challenge, but if I had to, that would be near the top for me. Like it was
Correct. Yeah, it's kind of is it an unspoken rule or have we spoken it?
I've always assumed it was unspoken.
It's an unspoken rule. The movie that the list is based on that we were reviewing is not eligible for our list. Although sometimes guests don't know that and they'll put it in there, and that's fine. That's
and then lastly, and this is more of just a fun inclusion because I don't think it's that great of a film, but History of the World Part 1, which came out 42 years ago and finally got a sequel in a form of a Hulu series.
What an amazing example
this spring
of literally a movie that says it's a part 1, but it was not a part 1. No intention of being a part 1.
But then they did make a part 2, fulfilling this 42-year-old joke. Mel Brooks is a genius. And again, it's not one of Mel Brooks's best movies, but there are definitely certain vignettes and scenes that are very, very funny. And I have to include it because it included part 1 as a total gag that for 42 years just went unanswered and they finally paid it off. It's the longest setup payoff, I think, in at least in cinematic titles. And I got to just honorable mention to that one.
I would also mention Mockingjay Part 1. I do like the Hunger Games Mockingjay movies.
I kind of forget those movies were really good, and everyone was on them for like 4 years, and then just you don't hear anybody talk about them anymore.
And then the other one I would mention, while it is true the Back to the Future 1 is not a part 1, Back to the Future 2, ironically, is kind of a part 1. So
I didn't think that counted. That would have been near my top.
Yeah, I figured it might have been, but they were produced at the same time with the intention of releasing both of them, and they do intersect in some ways. So I think it would fit the category. So yeah, that's Back to the
put
Future
Avatar and Back to the Future near the top of my list. And,
we're all good to go.
Forget everything I said. It was all out of order. It's all broken.
I'm out of order. You're out of order. We're all out of order.
We're all out of order.
All right. Damn system's out of order.
We're going to do our SIFT quest, our buried treasure. The SIFT quest is in the pre-show that if you're a SIFT member, you have access to. The buried treasure this week. What is that one thing in any area of pop culture you want to make sure people know about it? John, you're our guest, so you will go last. Andrew, kick us off.
It's my buried treasure this week is a movie that not even ChatGPT could predict would be the number 1 at the box office, and that is Sound of Freedom.
Sound of Freedom, interesting.
Have either of you guys seen this movie yet?
I have not seen it, but I've heard so much about it, and I'm not convinced everything I've heard is genuine. So I'd love to hear from a real person and not some astroturfed, Christian-funded bot on Twitter. What did you actually think about the child trafficking movie?
Man, child trafficking is great, man. No, this movie is phenomenal. Absolutely loved it. I didn't really get any sense of either political or religious.
No, I don't think the movie is, but everyone talking about it just feels like overtly in your face.
There are lots of like church groups buying out,
right,
to go and see this and stuff. It is a rough movie, I will say this. And the fact that this movie could have gone even harder because this is PG-13, that that it could, but even for PG-13, the stuff that they're dealing with and talking about is pretty traumatic. Performances all around are great. I love Jim Caviezel. He's always been one of my favorites. The two young kids in this, Crystal Aparcio and Lucas Avila, so good. Whenever you get the chance to really praise good child acting, I cannot wait to see what these kids who are 4 and 5, what they're able to do. They're so good. So many, it's just a wild story. And I think that if you guys get the chance to see this, I think you'll really be impressed by how good it is.
Oh, I'm definitely planning and interested to see it because I've heard so much about it. My only negative is the discourse has been unfortunately kind of heated, and it's hey, let's everyone's against child trafficking. Let's not point fingers at left or right now because this seems unproductive. We all don't want kids to be kidnapped.
Unfortunately, because it is possibly the most vilified and vile act that our culture sees. People use it in a polarized culture, to paint other people as terrible people, right? And so conspiracies, whatever will often involve words like child trafficking, pedophile, whatever. They'll put that in there. And so unfortunately that becomes part of the surrounding hubbub around something like this, especially when you've got Jim Caviezel involved, who's very outspoken with some ideas of how he sees specifically the world. So yeah. It's
there's at the end of this movie, like in the credits, you'll see a section where it says, if you want a free ticket to go and see this movie, we'll give you a free ticket because we want as many people to see this as possible.
Yeah, I think commendably the movie has pioneered a pay it forward campaign where anyone who likes the movie can buy a ticket for the next person, and anybody can go to the Angel Studios website or the Sound of Freedom website and pick up a ticket that someone else has already paid for and see the movie for free, because they just want to get the message out that I obviously I know that child trafficking is bad and I know it's prevalent and it's terrible. I think some people don't know that, and this might be their first and only exposure to this dark underworld that unfortunately a lot of our unfortunate government agents have to deal with flushing out rather. And I've just been so distracted this week from the baggage of the discourse. And I want to cut through and just actually see the movie for what it is and appreciate or not appreciate it for what it's trying to do. And I'm glad to hear you actually just liked it on the merits of film.
No, I think first and foremost, it is a great movie. I was not fascinated. I learned about the organizations that are involved in, like, it's not just somebody stealing a kid. There are groups behind this. This is organized crime that's going on, because they make the reference in the movie. They say you can sell a bag of cocaine once. You can sell a kid 5 times in a day. And like once that sinks in and you realize that that's the movie that you're dealing with, it's powerful. It's a very powerful movie.
Well, I will say before we move on that this cause is near and dear to my heart. I genuinely believe it is our greatest failing as a human species to not protect our children. And my job was very generous to make a donation to a charity on my birthday, and I chose Love 146. If you haven't checked out Love 146, please do. They do specific survivor care work with children and getting children out of trafficking. So I wanted to mention that because
that's great.
It is heavy on my heart. So there are other places that are doing great work as well. Love 146 is just the one that I've come across and have supported in the past. So there
Fantastic.
You go. All right, so on to my buried treasure, which just as serious and somber. How do you follow up
let's
that?
Lift the mood a little bit here.
I'm sorry.
Bummed me out.
No. Nope, not at all. I'm going to talk about Futurama season 11.
I forgot this was coming.
So season 11 drops on the 24th of this month, if you're listening to this in July of 2023. And I got some screeners. I got screeners of the first 7 episodes. I think it is a 10-episode season. And I'll just say, I think Futurama still got its fastball. I really had a good time with these episodes. Unlike some, like the movies, were different because of their length. They were still hilarious. By the way, those movies are great. And also, I should say, some people will say this is season 8 because of all the different various incarnations of this. I go with 11. Feel free to pick your poison. But these are just Futurama episodes. They're just Futurama episodes. Like, they're the typical, 20 to 25 minute,
That's great.
Jam-packed with jokes, the characters you love, self-referential stuff.
Thank you for putting this back on my radar. I watched the pilot of Futurama when it aired in 1999. I fell in love. I loved this offshoot of The Simpsons that took things in a much more sci-fi way. I thought the satire was a lot stronger and more pointed. And it ran great for 4 seasons, and then it got canceled. And I was like, oh, whatever, easy come, easy go. And then it came back, and then it got canceled. And then it came back, and then it got canceled. And now it's back. I think this is the 4th, 5th. Again, if you count the movies as their own little thing, this is, I think, the 5th iteration.
Believe me, there are plenty of meta jokes about this in the new season.
It's an unkillable show. And what's so funny and also great is that in the time Futurama has been canceled and resurrected 4 separate times, The Simpsons never even left its time slot.
It's amazing.
Sundays at 8 on Fox. It's so interesting that Matt Gehring has those 2 sort of claims. They're the longest running show and the only show to be canceled 4 separate times. Like, he has both of those records. That's great.
It's amazing.
I'm glad to hear you loved it, though. One of my favorite shows.
I don't know if you watched Disenchantment. Also a home run, in my opinion. I thought Disenchantment was also really, really funny. I wonder if that'll have a couple lives as well. But yeah, Futurama, it's hard to say something is better than The Simpsons. It just is. But Futurama does some things a lot better than The Simpsons does. And it really makes me laugh. So yeah, I wanted to give you a heads up. It's coming out the 24th of July, 2023 on Hulu.
I will definitely keep an eye open for that.
I think it's a weekly drop. I could be wrong, but I think it's a weekly drop. All right, John, what's your buried treasure?
This one is premiering today, July the 14th, in theaters across the country. I got a chance to see it as a mystery movie at Regal Cinemas a couple weeks back. Theater Camp is a brand new sort of low budget indie film that, and the best way I can sell it and describe it, this feels like a spiritual successor to the great stuff from Christopher Guest. Best in Show, A Mighty Wind, This is Spinal Tap. But this one is about the quirky kids, self-serious quirky kids at a theater camp in upstate New York. And this, going into it literally and completely blind, I had never even heard of the movie. I sat down for this Mystery Monday thing that Regal Cinemas does. I had never done that before. It's $5. I sit down, and I don't even know what the movie's going to be or what it's going to be about. This title card flashes on the screen, and then we watch the movie. And maybe it helps that I went to a theater school. I went to Emerson College. I knew a lot of theater kids. They have a type. They have a personality. They have a boisterousness and ambition, and they think everything they do is the best and only thing that matters. And Theater Camp kind of really hones in on that and makes every little dumb play and dumb decision they do seem like the end of the world when it doesn't go right. And the camera and the characters is constantly winking and nudging at the audience like, these guys are not very good. This is not serious. This is not important. And I was on the floor, like choking on my water, laughing at some of the stuff in this movie. It uses title cards as exposition fast forwards. Every time there was a flash of exposition, the audience would burst out laughing because it's the kind of thing that would immediately contradict what just happened or fast forward past something we thought was important. And it was subversive and expository in the funniest way. I've never laughed at a title card louder than Theater Camp. And I think if you like Best in Show, if you like the stuff that Chris Guest and Fred Willard and those guys used to do, this is such a fun and it's 90 minutes. Like, I miss short comedies. Where did they all go? Every movie's 3 hours long now. Like, gosh, just keep it under 90,
part one.
Please. Yeah,
a 3-hour part one
with Fast and Furious and Dune coming up and the Mission Impossible and Indiana Jones. Everything's like 3 hours long now. Just
make a
please.
TV show at that point.
90 minutes. Just keep it short. Anyway, this is great. I think everyone should go check it out. At the very least, when it's on digital, give it a rent. And
it's
yeah,
on my radar now.
If you know theater kids, if you did any theater at any point in your life, those flamboyant types, this is the movie you're like, you're gonna get so much more out of it if you know anybody like that.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun.
Yep, I studied theater in college, so this is definitely going to be a movie for me then.
I was the weird kid that existed as a jock and a theater nerd.
Hey, there you go.
I would go from basketball season to the fall play.
I want to ruin one joke because it's very apropos of that comment, where these theater kids, they round the corner of a cabin and they see one of their friends throwing a football and playing catch with somebody else, and he immediately drops the football. It's not what it looks like, and it's just such a funny moment where it takes that reverse. Like, Dad, I promise, I'm not. It's not what it looks like, and it's such a great moment where the tropes of like homosexuality and like being caught are flipped, and being an athlete and being straight are
Yeah.
the things that are seen as shameful in this group, and it's just
Right.
so funny.
Amazing. I would also mention The Menu as a great title card comedy. Lots of great laughs to the title cards in The Menu as well.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, and can I really quickly? I believe, Andrew, was it you who recommended the Barkley Marathons documentary on this show? Does that sound familiar?
Marathon.
Who recommended that to me? It's a
Don't know.
documentary about these super 56-mile race through the Tennessee mountains. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, that was me.
Okay.
Yeah, you had to remind me it was the Tennessee Mountain Race. Yeah.
The Tennessee Mountain Race. You recommended that a few weeks back as a buried treasure. I watched it. I thought it was fantastic. So I want to give you props for that. And Aaron, you've been singing the praises of The Bear, the TV show, which my wife and I finally started. We're not through season 2 yet, but we loved season 1. So thank you both for both of those recommendations.
Nice. Great things in store for you in season 2.
Yes, I've heard many good things from you included on season 2.
Yep, I'm starting season 2 tonight.
Nice. Get on it. It's going to be so fun. Well, there you go. There's a buried treasure. That's Theater Camp, which is, strangely enough, at the theater. And Futurama Season 11 will be on Hulu in a week or so. Sound of Freedom also available at your local movie theater. Well, we did it, guys. We did a podcast.
Yeah,
Congratulations to everybody for doing your own stunts today. Thank you so much for joining us today for Sif Pop. It is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out again today.
Thanks, you, buddy.
Big thanks to producer Phil for producing the audio and video show.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you to John Paula for stopping by again today. Check him out all over the internet. Go ahead and give a shout out to where you want people to head to.
Why don't you follow me on Threads? You know what? It's the new social media platform. Everyone's
it's the
over
new
there.
Hip thing.
You know, we're getting a little sick of Elon Musk and Twitter.
So we're going to Mark Zuckerberg.
So I'm going to Mark Zuckerberg.
Just a great
Threads.
Moral choice.
Yeah, it's the lesser of two idiots, 2 billionaires. I'm at the John Paula over on Threads. It's more of the same for me, but hey, you can boost my follower count on the brand new platform Threads, only by Meta.
There's a new social media out there now. Great.
Yeah. It's an offshoot of Facebook and Instagram.
Very nice.
It's all connected. It's all.
Follow John.
To be fair, I am enjoying it more than Twitter. It seems less toxic. It seems more community. It seems a little more enjoyable and fun and lively. And it's the same old conversation.
Until more people show up and make it toxic.
So right now, I really like it.
Follow the John Paula on Threads and nowhere else. All right. Thank you, John, for being here today. Thank you also to our amazing Sif Pop members. That's at Patreon, patreon.com/SifPop. Lots of ways you can support there at different levels, lots of fun perks at those different levels. So check that out. And thank you for doing so. Also, lots of ways to connect with the podcast. Feel free to leave a comment, a rating, or a review wherever you listen, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever. You can also email us, feedback@siftpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like this show too, so let them know about it. And that listening is much easier than completing 4 consecutive escape rooms powered by gravity. We will be back next week with Oppenheimer and Barbie. What a 1-2 punch. Oppenheimer and Barbie. And we will see you then.
Yep.
Bye.
Thanks for hanging out live, guys. Cisco Claygo, Jay Bourgeois, always good to see you guys hanging out in the chat. So appreciate it. We're gonna run. Love you all.